Tiffany Henyard, once a rising political star in Dalton, Illinois, has found herself at the center of a scandal that is capturing national attention for all the wrong reasons. What started as a promising career, filled with ambitious goals for the town and its people, has turned into a story of financial mismanagement, alleged personal enrichment, and federal investigations. Henyard, who once commanded the loyalty of local government officials and residents alike, is now under fire as evidence emerges suggesting she has been misusing taxpayer dollars to fund a lavish lifestyle at the expense of the very community she swore to serve. Henyard's ascent to power in Dalton was swift and dramatic. She assumed the role of mayor following the sudden death of her predecessor, Frank Zuccarelli. Her appointment raised questions from the start, but she quickly silenced her critics with bold promises of progress and revitalization for town. The once financially struggling Dalton seemed to have found a beacon of hope in Henyard's energetic leadership, and her grand plans included initiatives for veterans, seniors, and new economic developments aimed at turning the town around by 2021. Henyard had solidified her position, winning the mayoral election with overwhelming support. She also added the role of supervisor for Thornton Township to her political portfolio, which combined two powerful offices under her name. This move drastically increased her earnings, reportedly to an astounding $200,000 annually. Henyard seemed unstoppable, but behind the scenes, cracks in her leadership began to show as her political power grew. So did the controversy surrounding her. Henyard's administration quickly gained a reputation for a lack of transparency, and questions about financial mismanagement began to surface. It wasn't long before critics started to accuse her of turning Dalton into her empire. Municipal resources, they claimed, were being diverted for personal gain. Henyard's critics were particularly vocal about her extravagant spending habits. Public funds that were intended for essential services, infrastructure, and community programs were allegedly being funneled into Henyard's expenditures. These included lavish vacations, designer shopping sprees, and even a $500,000 driveway built for her mother's house. As these reports surfaced, Dalton residents, already struggling under a $3.5 million town deficit, began to question the integrity of their leaders' social media platforms. Became a battleground, with residents expressing outrage over what they saw as the reckless mismanagement of taxpayer dollars. And yet, despite the mounting public outcry, Henyard continued to consolidate power, using her position to secure loyalty from allies and silencing any attempts to challenge her in a turn of events that seemed ripped from the pages of a political thriller. The FBI launched an investigation into Henyard's actions. Agents raided her home and uncovered millions of dollars stashed away in hidden caches, suggesting that Henyard had been using public funds for personal enrichment. This was the final straw for many Dalton residents, who had already lost faith in their mayor's ability to lead the raid. Also revealed that Henyard's spending went beyond personal luxuries. It became clear that she had misused public funds for a series of questionable activities, including a $67,000 spending spree on travel in just 5 months. This amount exceeded the annual income of many Dalton residents and raised further questions about her priorities. What started as a legitimate business trip to Springfield soon turned into a personal extravaganza, complete with a large entourage, luxury hotels, expensive meals, and motorbike rides, all funded by taxpayer money. Perhaps most egregious was her use of public funds to promote her image. Henyard reportedly had her face plastered on billboards throughout the town, not for campaign purposes, but as a self-aggrandizing move. As the community struggled with inadequate municipal services and mounting debt, Henyard's vanity project sparked outrage among residents. One of the most shocking aspects of the scandal is the role played by the Henyard Care Foundation, a breast cancer charity that Henyard had established. What was initially touted as a noble cause quickly came under scrutiny as investigators uncovered evidence that the foundation was being used to fund Henyard's extravagant lifestyle. Donations that were meant to help the community were allegedly being funneled into personal indulgences, such as luxury vacations and designer clothes. Some reports even claimed that the foundation's funds were used to pay for the $500,000 driveway for Henyard's mother's home. Public anger reached a boiling point as more details about Henyard's financial mismanagement were exposed. In addition to the lavish vacations and self-promotion campaigns, it was revealed that she had used taxpayer money to pay for promotional materials and merchandise, including T-shirts and hoodies, which she sold to further line her pockets. Despite being questioned about these expenditures, Henyard refused to provide a clear explanation, leading many to believe that she had used her position to exploit public resources for personal gain. As the scandal continued to unfold, the financial crisis in Dalton became impossible to ignore. Municipal services were deteriorating, roads were left unrepaired, and the town's debt continued to climb. Residents, once hopeful for a better future under Henyard's leadership, now found themselves disillusioned as their mayor's extravagant lifestyle became a symbol of the town's dysfunction. At the heart of the controversy is a profound breach of trust between Henyard and the people she was elected to serve. Critics argue that her actions are emblematic of a larger issue in politics: the temptation of unchecked power and the ability of leaders to manipulate public resources for personal gain. In Henyard's case, the result has been a town teetering on the brink of financial ruin, with the mayor's extravagant spending acting as a stark contrast to the needs of the very community she was meant to serve. The FBI's investigation into Henyard's alleged financial misconduct has only deepened the mystery surrounding her administration. As the investigation continues, rumors swirl that Henyard's inner circle is beginning to crack under pressure. Some of her allies are reportedly cooperating with investigators in an attempt to save themselves from potential legal ramifications. Meanwhile, Henyard has publicly defended her actions, claiming that the allegations against her are politically motivated attacks designed to damage her reputation. However, her attempts to rally support on social media, posting cryptic messages about solidarity and defiance, have largely fallen flat. The growing calls for her resignation have only intensified as more details about her spending and alleged misuse of funds come to light. What was once seen as a promising political career is now unraveling in the face of damning evidence, and a town desperate for accountability. Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton will likely be remembered not for her grand promises of revitalization, but for the scandal that has defined her time in office. What started as an inspiring story of political ambition has now become a cautionary tale of greed, betrayal, and unchecked power. Her fall from grace serves as a reminder of the dangers of consolidating too much power in one person's hands and the importance of holding public officials accountable for their actions. Henyard's case highlights the delicate balance between ambition and responsibility, and how the misuse of power can erode public trust and cause long-lasting damage to a community. As the federal investigation continues and new revelations surface, the people of Dalton are left to wonder just how deep the corruption runs. While Henyard remains defiant, it seems increasingly unlikely that she will be able to maintain her grip on power. The damage to her credibility may be irreparable, and the future of Dalton remains uncertain as the scandal continues to unfold. In the end, Henyard's legacy may not be one of progress and change, but of lost opportunities and a community left to pick up the pieces. The saga of Tiffany Henyard serves as a stark reminder of the importance of transparency, integrity, and accountability in public office, and the consequences that follow when those values are disregarded. Tiffany Henyard, once seen as a promising and dynamic leader for Dalton, Illinois, has now become the face of scandal, corruption, and financial collapse. Her tenure as mayor has been marked by excessive spending, retaliation against critics, and a failure to manage the town's finances. What started as a hopeful period for Dalton has quickly devolved into a series of allegations and investigations that have shattered the public's trust in Henyard's leadership. One of the most glaring examples of Henyard's misuse of public funds was her exorbitant spending on a personal security team, which reportedly cost the town over $1 million. The security detail, more fitting for a high-ranking politician or celebrity, was deployed 24/7, even during her trips. These unnecessary expenses only worsened Dalton's already struggling budget, and overtime payments for security staff became a source of contention. In one case, a security officer allegedly earned $113,000 for 303 hours of work over 2 weeks, raising suspicions of time inflation and corruption. This level of spending contrasted sharply with the daily struggles of Dalton's residents, who watched in frustration as their tax dollars were drained to support Henyard's luxurious lifestyle. Henyard's self-glorification also reached new heights, with taxpayer money being used to erect billboards featuring her face throughout the town. In a community already burdened by financial instability, this act was seen as not only ethically questionable but also tone-deaf. While Dalton's debt continued to grow, Henyard seemed unaffected by the financial collapse her administration had triggered, living as though the town's problems did not concern her. Henyard's leadership style quickly gained a reputation for being driven by ego and retaliation. Anyone who dared to challenge her authority reportedly faced swift retribution. Employees and local businesses who refused to comply with her demands allegedly suffered consequences, such as wrongful termination and the revocation of business licenses. One notable case involved Boyne Thrash, a longtime employee of Thornton Township, who claimed he was fired after refusing to cooperate with Henyard's schemes. Thrash alleges that Henyard offered him a $100,000 raise in exchange for agreeing to replace an attorney with someone preferred by her assistant. When he declined, he was promptly dismissed, adding fuel to the growing list of legal battles against Henyard. This pattern of retaliation extended to political allies as well. Carmen Carlisle, a former trustee and one-time ally of Henyard, became a whistleblower, publicly criticizing Henyard's leadership and exposing a culture of intimidation. Carlisle's allegations were supported by claims of harassment, including reports that Henyard used police resources to intimidate critics, even sending officers to their homes to silence dissent. This abuse of power further eroded public trust in Henyard's administration, creating an atmosphere where residents and employees feared speaking out against her. The most shocking of these retaliation claims came from a former assistant, P. Dukes, who filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment during a taxpayer-funded trip. Dukes claims that after reporting the incident, she was placed on unpaid medical leave, further highlighting the toxic and abusive culture within Henyard's administration. These lawsuits and allegations have painted a disturbing picture of a leader more focused on consolidating power and personal gain than on serving her community. As lawsuits continue to pile up, the cloud of controversy surrounding Henyard's administration grew darker. Her alleged lavish spending, retaliatory tactics, and abuse of power have left Dalton in financial ruin. The town, already facing significant debt, now finds itself dealing with a $2 million deficit, unpaid debts for essential services like street paving and tree trimming, and a lack of proper oversight. Dalton has operated without an annual audit since 2021. Leaving its financial situation in disarray. Reports have also linked Henyard to a $3 million debacle involving blank checks, a 21% increase in police department expenses, and a staggering $65 million deficit in the general fund. Henyard has attempted to deflect blame onto others, particularly her former right-hand man, Keith Freeman, who has been charged with bankruptcy fraud and is rumored to be cooperating with investigators. Despite these efforts, the evidence against Henyard continues to mount, making it increasingly difficult for her to maintain any semblance of credibility. Henyard's political legacy, once thought to be one of progress and revitalization, is now rapidly crumbling. What was once seen as bold leadership has been exposed as a tale of unchecked ambition, financial mismanagement, and personal corruption. Despite mounting evidence and growing public outrage, Henyard has continued to dismiss the backlash, framing it as a result of the pressures of public life. However, her actions suggest a much darker story, one in which her ambition and ego take precedence over the needs of the community. As federal investigations into Henyard's spending and governing practices continue, it remains to be seen whether she will be able to salvage any part of her tarnished reputation. Her refusal to acknowledge the growing calls for resignation has only deepened the divide between her and the people of Dalton. The scandal has left the town in financial chaos, with the residents now searching for accountability and a path forward in the wake of Henyard's chaotic tenure. Henyard's time as mayor of Dalton serves as a cautionary tale of how unchecked power and ego can lead to widespread corruption, financial ruin, and the erosion of public trust. What was once a promising leadership approach has now unraveled into a series of ethical violations, retaliation, and a total disregard for both the well-being of Dalton's residents and the integrity of local government. The financial mismanagement and abuse of power that characterized Henyard's administration have left Dalton reeling. The town, once hopeful for progress, now faces a long road to recovery as it tries to rebuild from the damage done by its former leader. Henyard's legacy will likely be one of broken promises, financial instability, and a deep erosion of trust in local government. A legacy that the people of Dalton will not soon forget as investigations continue and more revelations come to light. The full extent of Henyard's misconduct may still be uncovered. But one thing is certain. The damage to Dalton's reputation and finances will be felt for years to come, long after Tiffany Henyard has faded from the political spotlight. Tiffany Henyard's time as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has rapidly descended into scandal, financial mismanagement, and allegations of corruption. Once seen as a hopeful leader with ambitious plans, her administration has now been exposed as a cautionary tale of unchecked power, retaliation against critics, and reckless spending that has left the town in financial ruin. Henyard's tenure is marked by lavish spending, including taxpayer-funded trips, extravagant security costs, and the use of public funds for personal gain. Reports of her ballooning police department expenses only add to the residents' concerns, especially as many struggle to make ends meet. These excessive expenditures have become a symbol of her administration's disconnect from the needs of the people she was meant to serve. Henyard's critics accuse her of viewing the town as a battleground to control, rather than a community to serve. Workers allegedly were coerced into spying on political opponents and digging up dirt on anyone who questioned her authority. These tactics of intimidation have only deepened the public's distrust in her leadership, with residents calling for transparency and accountability that is yet to be addressed amid mounting controversies. Henyard has continued to deflect blame and dismiss the allegations as politically motivated attacks. She remains defiant even as the situation spirals out of control, digging in her heels and insisting she's being targeted due to her gender, a claim that many find flimsy and self-serving. Her refusal to take responsibility has left the town disillusioned, While the financial mess created by her administration deepens with each passing day, critics argue that Henyard's leadership has exacerbated Dalton's financial crisis, with a growing deficit and a lack of oversight. Her tactics of denial and deflection have alienated the community, making it increasingly clear that she is out of touch with the people she was elected to serve. The scandal has taken a darker turn, with the FBI launching a full investigation into Henyard's activities. A search of her home uncovered significant sums of hidden cash, raising serious questions about her financial dealings. The investigation is now delving into her financial records, company filings, and operations of her controversial charity, with potential charges of wire fraud and embezzlement hanging over her head. This deepening investigation has only fueled calls for Henyard's resignation. As residents demand answers for the financial chaos she has left in her wake, Henyard's response has been to downplay the gravity of the situation, continuing to deflect blame and make vague claims of political sabotage. But the mounting evidence, coupled with the freezing of state funds and a growing list of legal troubles, suggests that her time in office may be nearing its end. With state funds frozen and a massive deficit crippling Dalton, the town now finds itself in crisis mode. Essential services like street paving and tree trimming have gone unpaid, and the lack of an annual audit since 2021 has left the town's finances in disarray. As investigations into Henyard's administration continue, the future of Dalton looks bleak. The financial mismanagement has been compounded by Henyard's refusal to take responsibility for the mess she created. Many residents believe the situation could have been avoided had Henyard been held accountable earlier in her tenure. Her failure to address the growing concerns only intensified the town's downward spiral. Henyard's leadership was also marked by allegations of retaliation against those who dare to challenge her. Workers, political opponents, and business owners who refused to comply with her demands reportedly face harsh retribution. The case of Boyne Thrash, a former employee of Thornton Township, highlights this abusive culture. Thrash claims he was fired after declining Henyard's offer to replace an attorney with someone of her choosing. This is just one example of the many legal battles brewing against Henyard for wrongful termination, harassment, and retaliation. Even more disturbing are reports of Henyard using police resources to intimidate critics. Some claim that officers were sent to their homes to silence dissent, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. These actions have further eroded public trust and painted Henyard as a leader more concerned with maintaining power than serving her constituents. As the FBI investigation heats up, Henyard's former right-hand man, Keith Freeman, is facing charges of bankruptcy fraud. Freeman is rumored to be cooperating with investigators, potentially implicating Henyard in even more financial wrongdoing. The revelations continue to mount, and it's becoming increasingly clear that Henyard's administration has created a financial and political nightmare for Dalton. Dalton's future now hangs in the balance. The town is reeling from the consequences of Henyard's leadership, and residents are demanding a complete overhaul of the town's leadership. There is a growing call for accountability, and for those responsible for this crisis to face justice, but the question remains: who will step up to lead Dalton out of this disaster? Henyard's leadership has left Dalton in financial ruin, and her legacy will likely be defined by scandal, corruption, and mismanagement. One seen as a promising leader with bold ideas for the future, Henyard's time in office now serves as a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the corruption that can arise when personal ambition overrides the public good. The FBI investigation, along with the growing legal troubles and the freezing of state funds, may be the turning point Dalton needs. The town must now focus on rebuilding, restoring financial stability, and reestablishing accountability in its government. This will require decisive action and strong leadership qualities Henyard has failed to demonstrate during her time as mayor. For Dalton to recover from the damage caused by Henyard's administration, it will need to clean the house. Those involved in financial mismanagement and unethical practices must be held accountable, and the town's leadership must be restored with individuals committed to transparency, fiscal responsibility, and ethical governance. Henyard's failure to live up to her promises and her mishandling of Dalton's finances have left the town searching for a new direction. The community deserves a leader who values public service over personal gain and who can rebuild the trust and stability that Henyard's administration has undermined. As for Henyard, her legacy is already cemented. It is one of corruption, financial ruin, and a breakdown of trust. The scandal that has engulfed her administration serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the corruption that can emerge when a leader sees public service as an extension of personal control. For now, Dalton's residents can only wait as the FBI investigation continues, hoping that justice will be served and that their town can begin the long process of recovery. But with Henyard still deflecting blame and downplaying the accusations against her, it seems that the road to accountability will be a difficult one.